Hey guys, this is Shippy back here. I'm back for round 2 of Jyotis Ravi's build. This is the follow-up video to the first video that I made showcasing Jyotis' statistic build utilizing the website GW2skills.net. Now I intend to show you how Jyotis plays in-game. He is my Speedy bomber, and to showcase his abilities I'm going to be soloing the instance that completes the final nightmare within. It is actually called the Nightmare Incarnate. It is the final instance in the Tower of Nightmares. It is at the very top. How you get there is you actually have to enter the Tower of Nightmares and go through all of the levels and then climb the pathway to the very top. It's a soloable instance. However, in order to get to the very top, you actually often have to join a small Zerg or a small group of people making their way through the tower. If you've never been to the top of the tower, you actually have to go from the beginning of the tower through all of the levels, which can be quite time-consuming if there's not many people on the map. There are lots of mobs and lots of bosses and mines that can trip you up. If you have been to the top, you can actually talk to a NPC and travel to the top level for 5 silver. However, you still have to run through the 3rd level, which again can be quite difficult because there's typically some events and mob bosses going on in there. And if you aren't able to break stun or dodge quickly, you can get slowed down and killed by these mobs. So you quite often have to make it to the top with a small group of people just to do the solo instance. It's a little bit backwards, but that's a whole nother story. So, that all being said, this is Jyotis, and I'm going to enter the instance now, and let's get this party started. So, this instance has 4 sections to it. There are 3 ante-chambers before you get into the main chamber with the final boss, which is the hybrid champion. And I'll show you that on the map here. You start out here and you'll see that there's red swords. The red swords will always be on the map if there is something to kill before you progress to the next section. So you'll see that there's a simple hallucination here that I have to kill before I can progress to the first antechamber. The first antechamber consists of 3 waves of enemies. There are 2 barren, toxic enemies that start out in the chamber, and they start out as friendly or appear friendly, but as soon as you get next to them they turn to enemy and you have to kill them. And then following that are 2 waves of watchwork devices, and you have to kill both waves. The second chamber is 3 waves of Aether Blades, and they also have an area of effect laser that follows you around the room. The 3rd chamber is the Molten Alliance, and there are 3 portals that you have to destroy. It is to your advantage to destroy the portals as quickly as possible because that is what completes the event. So as soon as you can destroy those portals, the NPCs will stop spawning and you can move on to the final chamber. The final chamber has sort of 2 sections to it. The first section is fairly short because it consists of a veteran boss, usually a Crate Nimros and a couple of barons or Sylvari adds on the side. In that first fight, you'll want to concentrate on the Crate Nimros because he will spawn lots of hallucinations. Try not to attack the hallucinations as much as possible. Just concentrate on getting the Crate Nimros down because the hallucinations he spawns are endless. So it's actually to your advantage to just kill the boss rather than try and kill all of his hallucinations. Anyway, that's probably too much about the last battle before we're even there. So I'll just get moving on to the first chamber, and you can see what Jyotis fights like. I'm going to be using a lot of my skills just to maintain life and damage. I also carry mortar seed turrets for PvE instances. You can buy these in Caledon Forest. I can show you where once I exit the instance. But they're very handy. Once you use them, you can drop AoE turrets or healing turrets. Kill this hallucination. It's fairly simple, nothing major. Alright, and that opens up the pathway to the first chamber. You can see there the Toxic Baroness and Baron. As soon as you get next to them, they will turn bad, and you have to defeat them. Once you kill these guys, the watchwork devices will spawn almost instantly, and you'll need to down them. Basically, they drop a lot of AoE, and you'll want to avoid their AoE damage as much as possible. You see that Jyotis has an advantage against these guys because he can basically run around and drop bombs, and with my large bomb radius, I can stay quite far away from their melee damage. And this guy just loves to run around and run into my bombs.
Accelerating.
You'll see that guy has a wind-up where he was just smacking the ground. You'll want to avoid that attack as much as you can. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's his most powerful attack, so if you can avoid it, you're better off. Alright. He's down, and now the watchwork devices. Here they are. You'll want to basically avoid damage as much as possible. These guys throw out a lot of AoE, the guys that are stationary. And the dogs will chase you around and try and stun you. You can see their attack now. They're using their stun and confusion attacks. If you get caught in that, it's bad. You can see there. I just took quite a bit of damage very quickly. Jyotis again has an advantage in this fight because I can basically concentrate on just avoiding the AoE circles while leaving the bombs. I don't have to very much worry about actually hitting my target. I can just run around and leave bombs as long as I'm close enough that my bombs are doing damage to them. Once I get this wave down, the next wave that spawns will be a veteran, and he is quite difficult in a solo case. He does a lot of damage, so you want to blind him and stun him or interrupt him as much as possible. He's got a lot of attacks that deal a lot of fire damage. You can avoid a lot of his jumping attacks. You can see that I'm blinding him. He misses a lot with his biggest attacks. You blind him at the right instance. You want to avoid that dog. He drops those guys occasionally.
I'm nigh invincible.
Dang it. God. Attack is good. Alright, he's almost down. if you actually kill him first, the dog does not despawn. You have to kill the dog too. There we go. That's the end of the first chamber. While this is a soloable instance, it can be quite difficult if you don't know how these chambers work. But once you sort of understand the mechanics of each chamber, it becomes quite simple. I would recommend, if you aren't able to do it in a solo run through, I would recommend doing it with at least 3 people, because each of these events scales up relative to how many people are in your party. You can have up to 5 people in your party. The reason I recommend 3 people is because with 2 people, mobs are increased in difficulty and optimization, and if there are only 2 of you and one of you goes down, the other person is going to be taking all the AoE and all of the aggro while they're trying to res you, and that can be quite difficult. So I recommend at least 3 people, so that if one of you goes down and needs to be resed or healed, the third person can distract the mobs and take the aggro while one of them heals the down person. So that all being said, I've taken a quick pause here to heal. Oh, and I'm forgetting my food too. Always remember your food. Now I'm going on to the Aether Blade chamber, and like I said before, the Aether Blades, you'll see now that there's a sword in this chamber, which means the event is finished and moved on ahead. This chamber has a mega laser, and it targets the ground, and it's got a 3 or 4 second charge before it actually does damage to you. So if you see the AoE circle around you, don't panic. You can dodge out of it or try and run out of it as quickly as possible. However, if you're inside of it when it does discharge, it will damage you and cause you to be slowed, and I think it does freeze damage or something of that nature, and I think it interrupts your skills also, which is very bad because the Aether Blades can basically swarm you and pound you to death if you get caught in it, and it does pretty significant damage. So you'll want to stay moving as much as possible in this chamber. The laser will follow you all around, and you'll see it before I even get to the chamber. It should pop up.
Playing with your thoughts. Don't be discouraged, darling.
There it is. You see it. You can count basically 1, 2, 3, 4, and it should discharge. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, maybe it's even longer. The Aether Blades can freeze you.
6 feet tall.
This first mob is unlucky because most of them are melee characters, so I can actually avoid a lot of their damage and just run around and have them follow me and run into my bombs again. Keep on freezing me.
Health increasing.
Alright, second wave.
Accelerate.
I know these all say hallucinations, but they basically function as your standard Aether Blades.
My energy is diminished.
Dang Grenadier. Does a lot of AoE damage, but he just basically stays stationary, so I gotta to use my ranged fight as much as possible against this guy.
I have energy.
Almost dead, and then I'll be on the final wave. Alright, final wave. Again, you'll just want to stay moving as much as possible. You'll see that I still have...
My mind is scrambled.
Alright, there's a veteran. You want to kill her as much as possible. She deals out the most damage. You want to blind them and or interrupt them as much as possible, because she can deal out a lot of damage and very quickly, as you can see. She keeps confusing me with
Feedback
movement.
loop initiated. My mind is scrambled.
Alright. Take a moment at the end of every battle to heal yourself and let some of your recharge happen. Otherwise, if you go into the next fight unprepared, it can be quite difficult. The third and final chamber before you get to the main chamber is Molten Alliance, and like I said at the very beginning, unlike these chambers where there was distinct waves of enemies, this chamber, the Molten Alliance, just keeps spawning. So you want to kill the portals as soon as you can, because if you don't kill them, more enemies will just keep spawning and you'll eventually be overwhelmed, and the mobs will be very difficult to defeat. And especially if you're in a group situation, you start out with more enemies to begin with anyway, just because of a higher number of people in your group. So if you're in a group, you want to concentrate your damage on the portals and then worry about downing the enemies. So, most of my recharges, yep, all my recharges are good. I'm actually going to drop a seed turret in this. I'm going to drop a damaged seed turret, just because I like the extra damage. And you'll see there's the portal and the enemies on the right.
Health increasing.
These guys can be difficult to defeat because the shamans have the capability to put down shields, which prevent any damage inside the shields. That's the first portal. Now I'm moving on straight on to the second portal. Again, Jyotis has a slight advantage here in this battle because I can basically run in circles around the portals and drop my damage, and my enemies will kind of follow me into my damage as long as I avoid their attacks. Final portal spawns in the middle, and once you've killed the portals, then it's just a matter of finishing off any enemies that have spawned. If the portals stay open, increasingly difficult enemies will jump out of them too, so that's another reason to get rid of them as soon as possible. This guy is the shaman, and he does have the capability of putting down a shield if you let him. That's it for the Aether Blades. Now the final chamber and the last part of this instance. Again, like I explained at the very beginning,
Why don't you
the
just give up?
this chamber has two waves. The first wave is relatively simple. You can see them from here. There's a veteran toxic Auratus or a Nimros. It just depends on. There's a chance at either or. This time it happens to be an Auratus. He will spawn hallucinations once you've killed the Baronesses, and the Baronesses have a chance to respawn, but he will also, the toxic veteran will spawn hallucinations. And like I said at the beginning, you'll want to concentrate on downing the toxic veteran, because the hallucinations are adds and they can damage you, but he will infinitely respawn them. So it's more important to focus damage on your veteran toxic Auratus and down him, because once he is downed, the hallucinations will disappear. And something similar will happen in the main fight. However, in the main fight versus the actual champion hybrid, he doesn't spawn very many hallucinations. So it's actually in the form of adds, and there will be toxic barons and toxic assassins and bulwarks, as well as veteran Nimros or Auratus. Since I'm soloing it, there probably won't be very many veterans in the final battle, but if you ever see a toxic assassin appear, you'll want to kill them as soon as possible, because they can deal out a lot of torment damage, and they're a little bit on the overpowered side, and they can swing a battle very quickly, and you can go down if you don't pay attention and notice that there is a toxic assassin. One more thing about the champion: he has the ability to drop toxic stalks, and at various points throughout the battle he will actually spawn toxic stalks. Up and through the first 5 times that I did this event, he usually only dropped one toxic stalk in the center, and he usually dropped it around 50% health or 25% health. However, the last time I did this instance, he actually dropped 3 of them in the center. So I don't know if it was a bug that they fixed, or it was just I was just lucky enough that he never dropped them the first couple times that I went through it. So you'll want to be aware when he drops the toxic stalk in the center. You'll want to kill that as soon as possible, because that also deals torment damage. So you'll just have to pay attention, and I often save my supply crate for when he drops those stalks, or if I need a burst of health from an assassin or something like that. Also, the champion hybrid, I think it's around 75% health or 60% health. He'll dive into the ground and then come back out of the ground and try and interrupt you, and he has actually increased in size and difficulty, and he does it a second time throughout the battle too. And for the final 25% of his health or so, he spawns toxic stalks all the way around the outside of the chamber. So if you're soloing this and you're a light character, you're going to have a difficult time staying away from him for the final 25%. So you'll want to have abilities and skills that can blind him or interrupt him, because you're basically going to be confined to the center area, and you might be taking quite a bit more damage than you're used to. So that all being said, let's get to it. And it does damage you when you drop off that ledge, so you'll want to heal up before you engage.
Invigorating. Accelerate.
Let's play.
Oratus will heal the Baronesses, so you'll want to down them as soon as possible. There you can see once you've got rid of one of the Baronesses, he will spawn his adds. There they are. Like I said, try and avoid them as much as possible, but concentrate your damage on the Nimrods instead.
I'm nigh invincible.
Alright, I always run to the back of the chamber because the champion spawns right at the front, and if you run to the back, you can actually get all of your health back.
This one.
He has a big interrupt kick, you can see there. He just tried to use it on me, but since I confused him, it's not actually damaging me too much. That one hurt. You'll see when I lay down my fire fields that I'm trying to leap into them so that I get that additional aura. You'll see that the toxic bulwark has been downed. I'm going to leave him in a down state as much as I can because as long as he's in this instance, that prevents a toxic assassin from spawning. So I'm going to want him to stay around as long as possible just so I don't have to deal with the toxic assassins.
I'm nigh invincible.
Again, Jyotis has a slight advantage in this battle just because he can run around and try and avoid damage as much as possible while the champion just runs into my bombs. You can see now he's been damaged enough where he dives into the ground, and now he spawns some stock on the outside of the ring.
I'm needed elsewhere.
Lacking endurance. Vitality restored.
He's already at 50% health, and he's already spawned all of the toxic on the outskirts.
Why won't anyone help me?
Ooh, it's getting dangerous. Need my heals. You'll see that he does this big charge up stab. You can actually avoid the damage. It's got a few seconds of charge, and if you see him, you can actually run away from him and avoid him hitting you. Which, if you're low on health, is wise.
I'm nigh invincible.
He can be interrupted when he's doing it also, or you can confuse him, so if he does hit you, it'll actually hurt him. He is now dived into the ground again. He might, yep, there, he just dropped his toxic stock at the center, so you want to down this as much as possible. Lucky enough, there's no toxic assassins.
Lacking endurance.
Oh, there's a toxic assassin. I want to get rid of him as quick as possible.
Health increasing.
It's okay that I was downed. I should be able to rally off the toxic assassin here.
I'm failing quickly.
So you, as you can see, that guy put way too much torment damage on me, and I went down fairly quickly. But since I was lucky enough to be right next to him, I was able to rally off him. If they're out of range, you're pretty much screwed.
High toxicity.
This fight's almost over. Once he's in his final 25% health, I think he becomes impossible to interrupt.
Exhilarating.
But as long as it's before that, you can actually interrupt. Almost dead.
Accelerate.
One big old bomb, and that should do it.
6 feet tall.
And he's dead. That is the instance. Since I didn't go down, well, I did go down, but since I didn't die, I was able to rally. That should have actually completed the instance with the special, which is right here. If you go to your Nightmare Within, the special achievement for this instance is defeat the toxic hybrid without any party members dying. It's easy to do this solo. However, if you can't do this solo, you'll have to do this instance without any of your group members dying. So it's pretty imperative that if somebody goes down and you want this achievement, that you res them before they are fully killed. So that being said, you can see I already picked up his chest, and the only thing left in this instance to complete is to run over to the injector here and interact with it, and it will inject the antitoxin to the heart. That completes the instance, and it will spawn your chest. And you get to choose your rewards. The very first time that you complete the instance, there will be a large chest on the ground. If you want to, you can view the cinematic. I'll view the cinematic.
On the other hand, nothing wrong with a little anticipation. We've been having so much fun, haven't we? Ah, the memories. No one even noticed the strings on my Flame Legion and Dredge puppets. Yay me! And I made them dance so pretty. Although, I suppose I did go a bit cuckoo with my crew. And crew. Ha! Lions ought to be talking about that hoo-ha for, generations. But my favorite performance to date was Queen's Jubilee. Oh, sigh. I do miss the charming Lord Farron and his fancy panties. I should tell you, by the way, I'm done here. This extravaganza couldn't have turned out better if you tried. But don't be sad. You'll see me again. Just not before I see you.
That's it. As I was saying before I viewed the video, there's the very first time that you do this, I believe there's a chest that spawns on the ground. After that, it's just a repeat, so you'll only get the chests from the champions and from completing the instance. So that's it. I'm going to exit the tower, and I can show you where to buy these seedlings in Caledon Forest. First, I'll show you at the very top of the tower here, there's also a tri-key chest. You can open this multiple times a day as long as you have 3 of these keys. The only way to get these keys is by killing various mobs throughout the Tower of Nightmares. The first level drops the blue key, I believe. The second level mobs drop the red key, and the third level mobs drop the green key. You'll need 1 of each key in order to open this chest. You can see that I have a couple, but I have 1 of everything. To get the key, you just double click on one of them, and then it will create a tricolor key, and you can come and get your rewards. And you can see what it gives you. There's a quick way down to the bottom if you want to get out. There's dive goggles here, which are also one of the achievements in the special event. And it's called Tower of Nightmares High Diver. So you put your goggles on. And let's go swimming. You'll want to avoid the you'll want to actually aim for the water, because if you hit that, you will die. And once you land in the water, there are enemies everywhere. There should be a ramp. Apparently that guy got ported.
Infuriating.
Ooh, there's a leak. I want to avoid it. There's the ramp. Do some walking on water.
Accelerate.
You can see here when I swap my kits that I'm getting my speed boost. I'm just maintaining it by swapping my kits back and forth. This comes in handy if you're trying to run through the tower without getting damaged. This is the first level of the tower. I'm actually going to run backwards through it so that I can exit. You'll want to avoid these mines because they can kill you. Nope. Dead. And that's how you die in the Tower of Nightmares. Oh shoot, I gotta wait for it to respawn. Get away. I'll just respawn and repair.
Do you have a moment?
You'll see at the very beginning I was talking about having to run through the tower. This is the guy that will allow you to port to the 3rd level if you've already been there. However, it costs you 5 silver. But it can cost you 5 silver or lots of headache trying to actually run through the place, as you just saw. I'm going to exit just briefly so I can show you where you can buy these toxic seeds. They're very useful and they only cost 16 copper, so they're really cheap, and they come in quite handy when you're trying to solo tough objects. They do not work in PvP or World versus World. You can only use them in PvE. So, in Caledon Forest, there's a little village here, and as long as it's not contested, there is an NPC that is a merchant available right in the center of it, and you can buy these seeds from him. These seeds here. And that's it. That's all there is for this video. I hope to see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.